Today, Monday, January the 4th, we celebrate the feast of Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton on this 11th day of Christmas. She was the first American-born saint. Elizabeth was born August the 28th, 1774, in New York City, on the eve of the American Revolution. Raised in a devout Anglican family, in 1794, at age 20, she married a wealthy merchant, William McGee Seton. Together they had 5 children: Anna Maria, William, Richard, Catherine, and Rebecca. During this period, described as a charming and cultural lady, she became involved in social work and was known as Protestant Sister of Charity. By 1803, however, her husband's shipping business had gone bankrupt, and he developed tuberculosis. In search of a warmer climate that might improve his health, he took Elizabeth and their eldest daughter to Italy, where they also planned to visit his business friends, Filippo and Antonio Felici. However, due to a suspicion that he may have had yellow fever, when they landed, they initially had to remain in quarantine for a month in a cold, damp dwelling. Indeed, a few days after release from quarantine to an apartment in Pisa, William died. Inspired by the hospitality and kindness of the Felici family, she was also impressed by their devout Catholicism. After her return to the United States, and after a year of spiritual search, Elizabeth then became a Catholic in 1805. She was rejected by family and friends and without financial resources. She established a boarding house for schoolboys in New York and performed other assorted jobs to supplement a meager income. Don't forget she had 5 children. The president of St. Mary's College and Seminary in Baltimore was in New York and learned of her plight and invited her to establish a school for girls in Baltimore, which opened in 1808. The 3 daughters accompanied her to Baltimore, while her 2 sons preceded her and initially were at Georgetown College, but then transferred to St. Mary's. The following year, with 4 companions, she founded a religious community, initially known as the Sisters of St. Joseph, and moved with them to Emmitsburg, Maryland, about a mile from St. Mary's College, Mount St. Mary's College and Seminary, where she established a school for poor children. In 1811, the sisters adopted the rules of the Daughters of Charity, which had been co-founded in France by St. Vincent de Paul and St. Louise de Marillac. This was approved the next year, 1812, by Archbishop Carroll of Baltimore. And finally, actually, in 1850, the merger with the Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul would become formal as its first formal American branch. Elizabeth was elected superior, and with 18 other sisters, took vows the following year. Thereafter, she was known as Mother Seton. Hers was the first American religious society, formerly known then as the Daughters of Charity of St. Joseph, devoted to the service of the poor and to teaching in parochial schools. Historians often credit her with laying the foundation for the Catholic parochial school system in the United States when, in late 1810 at Emmitsburg, she started the first free school for girls in the United States, staffed by her sisters. This has been described as, quote, the cradle of the Catholic school system in the United States, unquote. Mother Seton died in Emmitsburg on January the 4th, 1821, January 4th, today. By then, her communities were 20 in number and were spread throughout, first in Philadelphia, then in New York, and then elsewhere in North America and parts of South America. Everywhere they went, the sisters opened schools and taught in orphanages, and later became involved with hospitals. After only 12 years of leadership of the Sisters of Charity of St. Joseph, Mother Seton, at the age of 46, as I indicated, died on this day, January 4th. In her last hours, she encouraged those, including her only surviving daughter then, the two others had passed away, surviving daughter Catherine, who gathered about her, be children of the church, be children of the church. That's what she emphasized with them. During her life, Mother Seton faithfully has fulfilled her obligations, both as a religious leader and as a mother of her children. Their welfare was always uppermost in her mind. Her daughters lived with her in Emmitsburg, and her sons, both of whom later served in the United States Navy, visited her weekly from Mount St. Mary's College, where they had transferred, and which was close by. Mother Seton's cause for sainthood was first taken up by Cardinal James Gibbons in Baltimore. 3 miracles of hearing were attributed to her intercession, and she was beatified then by Pope John the 23rd in 1963, and canonized September 14th, 1975, by Pope Paul VI. The latter held her up as an example of how one can live an authentically spiritual life in the midst of material prosperity. In unique remarks, Pope Paul declared, quote, this is good, Elizabeth Ann Seton is a saint. Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton is an American. All of us say this with special joy and with the intention of honoring the land and the nation from which she sprang forth as the first flower in the calendar of the saints. Elizabeth Ann Seton was wholly American. Rejoice for your glorious daughter. Be proud of her and know how to preserve her fruitful heritage. Well, she is buried under an altar in the chapel of the National Shrine of St. Elizabeth Seton in Emmitsburg. She is patron of Catholic schools, seafarers, widows, and the state of Maryland. And here in the Washington Archdiocese, we have Elizabeth Seton High School in Bladensburg and Mother Seton Parish in Germantown. Just a few months ago, I revisited those sacred grounds in Emmitsburg and was delighted at the museum there now, as it wonderfully presents the life of this amazing woman, as well as the further developments of the order, now known as simply the Daughters of Charity, DC, not District of Columbia, but Daughters of Charity. And the museum gives special attention to the sisters' role in the Civil War Battle of Gettysburg, where they tended to the wounded and dead of both sides. So on this 11th day of Christmas, St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, pray for us.